Attachment patterns in everyday life, recognizing and rewiring your relationship blueprint. Introduction: Why relationship patterns matter in everyday happiness. Every day, our relationships profoundly shape our mood, stress levels, and overall happiness. The way we connect or struggle to connect with friends, partners, family, and colleagues often traces back to deep rooted relationship patterns formed early in life. Research shows that people who build stable, secure bonds tend to enjoy greater emotional well being, while those caught in insecure or negative patterns may experience more anxiety and conflict. In other words, understanding your own relationship style isn't just academic, it can directly improve your day to day life. What are relationship patterns? In simple terms, they are habitual ways of relating to others that we developed through early experiences. For example, one person might constantly fear being left out, while another pushes people away when they get too close. These patterns, often described by psychologists as attachment styles, internal working models, or object relations, act like an emotional blueprint, influencing how you interpret a late night text, a friend's criticism, or even a coworker's tone of voice. If your blueprint is secure and positive, you likely approach relationships with trust and confidence. If it's insecure, anxious, avoidant, or a mix, you might find yourself in cycles of jealousy, people pleasing, avoidance, or fear of rejection that undermine your happiness. Why does this matter? Because our relationships are a cornerstone of our mental health. Feeling securely connected to others provides a protective base for handling life's ups and downs. By contrast, consistently struggling with trust or closeness can leave us stressed, lonely, or stuck repeating painful patterns. The good news is that these patterns are not fixed in stone. With awareness and practice, adults can and do change how they relate. Even if you didn't have the best start in childhood, you can rewire your relationship habits toward greater security and balance. This report will help you translate the science of attachment into everyday insights and actionable steps. We'll explore how to spot your attachment habits, understand where they come from, and learn tools to change the script so you can build relationships based on trust and choice rather than fear. Let's begin by looking at common attachment patterns and how they show up in daily life. Spotting your attachment habits. Common signs and patterns. Do you panic if a close friend doesn't text back immediately? Or do you pride yourself on not needing anyone, even when you secretly feel lonely? Our attachment style tends to reveal itself in those little moments of closeness or conflict. It's essentially our default way of behaving in relationships, especially when we feel stressed or vulnerable. Most people fall into one of a few broad categories of attachment habit: secure, anxious, avoidant, or disorganized, also called fearful avoidant. Below is an illustration of the 4 adult attachment styles, organized along 2 key dimensions: anxiety, how much we fear rejection, and avoidance, how much we avoid intimacy. Everyone's experience is unique, but this framework helps make sense of our relational habits. As you read the descriptions, see which pattern or mix of patterns feels most familiar from your friendships, romance, family, or even work relationships. Secure attachment, balanced. Signs: you feel comfortable with intimacy and also okay with independence. In relationships, securely attached people tend to communicate openly and confidently, seek support when needed, and trust that others won't abandon them. They can set healthy boundaries without fear of losing the relationship, and they handle conflicts without extreme reactions. For example, if a partner needs a weekend away, a securely attached person misses them but doesn't spiral into panic or distrust. They inherently believe, "I'm worthy of love and others are reliable," which creates a stable, optimistic approach to relationships. Everyday signs: you can enjoy time with loved ones but also enjoy time alone. You generally trust others' intentions and feel confident expressing your needs. Anxious attachment, preoccupied. Signs: you crave closeness and reassurance, but often worry you're too much or that others might leave. People with an anxious style often struggle with clinginess or people-pleasing. For instance, you might flood your friend or partner with texts if they don't respond, experience texting anxiety, or feel jealous and insecure easily. You may overgive in relationships, always available, overly accommodating, out of fear of disappointing others. Conflict or silence from someone you care about can feel terrifying, triggering a fear of abandonment that might lead to desperate attempts to fix the situation or seek validation. An anxiously attached person's internal script might be, "I'm not truly lovable, and I might be abandoned at any time." As a result, they constantly seek proof that they are valued, yet paradoxically, that constant need for approval can strain their relationships. Everyday signs: you have a hard time not immediately replying or checking on people. You worry a lot about others' opinions. You often ask for reassurance like, "Are we okay?" And you might ignore your own needs to keep others happy. Avoidant attachment, dismissive. Signs: you value independence and personal space so much that too much closeness feels uncomfortable or threatening. Avoidantly attached folks often appear self-sufficient and may even downplay the importance of relationships. "I don't need anybody." In reality, this is a defense against the fear of being hurt or losing autonomy. Common behaviors include pulling away when someone gets too close, hiding or suppressing emotional needs, and avoiding vulnerability. For example, an avoidant person might go MIA for days when stressed, or habitually keep conversations surface level to steer clear of emotional intimacy. Their internal belief might be, "I can only rely on myself. Others will let me down or crowd me." They often see needing others as a weakness. Everyday signs: you feel uneasy with too many demands on your time. You prefer to solve problems alone rather than seek help. You might ghost people or shut down during arguments. And loved ones might complain you're distant or hard to read. You care about others, but feel safer keeping a bit of emotional distance. Disorganized attachment, fearful avoidant. Signs: this style is a mix of anxious and avoidant behaviors, often rooted in early trauma or chaos. You desire closeness, but deeply fear it at the same time, leading to confusing push-pull dynamics. With a fearful avoidant pattern, you might one day cling to a partner and the next day distance yourself because intimacy scares you. There's a heightened fear of rejection and abandonment, like the anxious style, combined with a distrust of others' intentions and difficulty depending on anyone, like the avoidant style. People with this pattern often never learned healthy ways to self-soothe. Relationships and the world can feel inherently unsafe or unpredictable. Everyday signs: you could be intensely jealous but also secretive, craving love but feeling on guard waiting for betrayal. You might overreact to small slights, have a hard time regulating emotions, or numb yourself to avoid feeling vulnerable. Underneath, there's often unresolved trauma. For example, "I'm scared you'll hurt me like I was hurt before, but I also fear being alone." As one coach notes, hypervigilance and rapid mood shifts in this style often reflect growing up in an unstable, tumultuous environment. This is the least common attachment style, and if you resonate strongly here, extra support, therapy, trauma healing is often needed to build security. Important: these categories aren't boxes to limit you, but tools to increase self-awareness. Many people see a bit of themselves in more than one style, or they feel mostly anxious with my romantic partner, but pretty secure with my friends, etc. That's normal. Attachment can vary by relationship type and even change over time. The key is to notice patterns. Do you repeatedly feel a certain way or act out certain behaviors across your relationships? Those patterns are clues to your attachment style. For instance, if you notice you avoid asking anyone for help at work because you don't trust others to do it right, that hints at avoidant tendencies affecting your professional life. Or if you get very anxious whenever your sibling doesn't return your call, that suggests an anxious style trigger in family context. Case example: texting anxiety. Elena often feels panicky when she doesn't get an immediate text reply from her close friend. One evening, she messages her friend about weekend plans, and hours go by with no response. Elena's mind races. She must be upset with me. Did I do something wrong? In the past, Elena would send a flurry of follow-up texts. "Are you mad at me? Please reply," desperately seeking reassurance. This sometimes annoyed her friend, who would later say, "Everything's fine, I was just busy." After learning about anxious attachment, Elena recognized this pattern. She practiced a new approach, taking a few deep breaths, reminding herself her friend's lack of instant reply likely just meant they were occupied, not a personal rejection. She challenged the fearful thought: is there real evidence my friend is angry, or am I projecting past experiences? And waited until the next day. Sure enough, her friend eventually replied cheerfully, apologizing for the delay due to work. By resisting the impulse to seek constant reassurance, Elena felt proud and noticed her anxiety eased faster. Over time, she's finding it easier to tolerate small periods of silence, especially as she builds trust that her relationships are still secure even when someone isn't immediately available. In reading Elena's story, you might relate to that itch to get instant reassurance, or perhaps you see yourself on the opposite end, like her friend, feeling overwhelmed by too many messages. These everyday scenarios are expressions of attachment habits. The anxious pattern fears disconnection at the slightest delay. The avoidant pattern, perhaps in the friend, may feel pressured by too much contact. Recognizing these tendencies in action is the first step toward change. You can't change what you don't notice. Try to observe your own reactions in relationships this week. When do you feel yourself pulling away, clinging tighter, or fearing the worst? Jot down those moments. You're mapping your relationship blueprint. How your relationship blueprint forms internal working models made simple. Why do we develop these attachment habits in the first place? The answer lies in our early experiences. Psychologists talk about internal working models, which is a fancy term for the deep-seated beliefs and expectations we carry about ourselves and others in relationships. Think of it as your relationship blueprint, largely drawn in childhood, updated by later experiences, and used, often unconsciously, as a guide for how to interact with the world. Early life as blueprint drafting. As infants and children, our brains are hard at work forming a picture of how relationships work. If your caregivers were consistently loving, responsive, and made you feel safe, you likely internalized a basic belief that I am worthy of love and I can trust others to be there for me. This positive internal model is the foundation of secure attachment. On the other hand, if early care was unpredictable, neglectful, or frightening, the opposite messages may have sunk in. I'm not really safe or good enough, and people can't be trusted to meet my needs. These become the seeds of insecure attachment. For example, a child whose parents sometimes cuddled them, but other times yelled or ignored them, might grow up unsure about love, craving comfort yet bracing for rejection, a recipe for anxious or disorganized patterns. Another child whose cries were routinely unanswered might conclude relying on others just leads to disappointment, paving the way for an avoidant, self-reliant stance. Crucially, these beliefs are formed when we're too young to rationalize. As one expert explains, during our first years, we absorb experiences without logic or language to explain them, so we develop unspoken but powerful hypotheses about ourselves and others. A baby can't think, Mom is depressed and doing her best, but she sometimes can't respond to me. Instead, the baby might simply feel, when I cry, no one comes. Something must be wrong with me, or people just don't care. Such feelings solidify into an internal working model. By the time we're adults, we may not remember those early events, but we've been living by the rules our brain inferred from them. What exactly is an internal working model? It's essentially the answer your mind gives to two key questions. Am I worthy of love? And are others dependable and kind? We all carry a subconscious scorecard on these two dimensions: self-worth and expectation of others. If both are positive, I believe I'm lovable and people are generally good to me, that supports a secure style. If you feel unworthy but idealize others, common in anxious style, you might cling tightly, thinking you must earn love. If you feel worthy but distrust others, common in avoidant style, you'll keep distance to avoid being let down. And if you feel neither worthy nor safe, disorganized style, relationships can feel like an unsolvable dilemma. You may desperately want love, yet assume it will hurt or betray you. These internal narratives run in the background, shaping your reactions often without you realizing it. For instance, let's say Alex has a core belief from childhood that if I make a mistake, I'll be punished or rejected. As an adult, whenever Alex accidentally upsets a friend or partner, he panics. Maybe he shuts down or frantically apologizes a dozen times. His strong reaction isn't just about the current moment. It's fueled by that old script of looming rejection. Meanwhile, Bella might have an internal model that people will leave no matter what, perhaps due to early abandonment. When her relationships start to get serious, she feels an urge to sabotage or leave first, a behavior that puzzles her until she uncovers that inner belief. In both cases, the internal working model is like a pair of colored glasses. It tints how Alex and Bella see their present relationships, often causing them to misinterpret situations or act in ways that bring about the very outcome they fear, e.g., clinging so hard that a partner feels smothered or keeping such distance that the other person finally gives up. Are your beliefs helping or hurting? A key to self-awareness is gently examining these ingrained beliefs about self and others. Some of your relationship beliefs will be helpful. For example, trusting that most people are well-intentioned can help you approach new friendships openly. Others might be hurting you, like believing you must perform perfectly to deserve love can lead to burnout and resentment. To start uncovering your own internal working model, reflect on questions like, what do I believe I have to do in order to be loved? And, when I feel insecure in a relationship, what story am I telling myself about what it means? Our most painful patterns often stem from beliefs that were accurate in a past context. Say, in a chaotic childhood, you did have to be invisible to stay safe, but are no longer true or useful in our current life. Try this simple exercise. Next time you feel a strong emotional reaction in a relationship, jealousy, panic, sudden urge to flee, pause and ask yourself, what belief or fear might be lurking under this feeling? Write it down. Then ask, is this belief definitely true here and now with this person? Often you'll find it's an old assumption. For example, you might realize, I'm afraid to tell my partner I'm upset because deep down I know they'll leave me, but objectively, they've never left or betrayed me before. That fear comes from somewhere else. This kind of reflection shines a light on the blueprint running your reactions. As therapist Christopher Guider notes, examining what's actually true in your current relationships can help you challenge outdated interpretations. In practical terms, if you always hesitate to trust because your caretakers were unsafe, start to collect evidence in the present of who is actually trustworthy, and consider giving them a bit more trust while reminding yourself this is a new situation, not the past. It's also worth mentioning that early trauma can dramatically shape internal models. Traumatic experiences, abuse, neglect, witnessing violence, etc., often teach a child deep lessons like, the world is dangerous, or I am powerless and unworthy. These can manifest later as severe trust issues, hypervigilance, or even symptoms resembling ADHD or other problems. In fact, some researchers note that hyperalertness or dissociation from trauma can be mistaken for attention deficits. The child isn't unfocused randomly, but scanning for danger or zoning out to cope. So if you have a history of trauma, know that those early survival adaptations might still be coloring your interactions. This doesn't mean you're doomed to insecure attachments, but it does mean healing the trauma, often with professional help, may be necessary to fully reshape your internal working model towards safety. In summary, our relationship blueprint is formed by early experiences and reinforced over time. But blueprints can be revised. The next section, People in Your Head, will delve more into how we carry those early relationships within us daily. And later, we'll cover how to retrain your brain with new, healthier experiences, essentially giving your internal model a much-needed update so it serves your present happiness, not your past fears. The people in your head, how old relationships still shape you today. Have you ever heard your mother's or father's voice in your head, even when they're not around? Perhaps in certain moments you literally hear an internal scolding, you're being lazy, or a praise, good job, I'm proud of you, seemingly coming from memory. This is a simple example of object relations in everyday life. We all carry internalized versions of important people, or objects, as early psychoanalysts called them, in our minds. These internalized relationships can strongly affect our emotional reactions, expectations, and boundaries with others, often without us realizing it. Think of your psyche as a house filled with the echoes of those who influenced you early on. There's the mom inside, the dad inside, maybe a critical teacher or a supportive grandparent stored in there too. According to object relations theory, when we were very young, we didn't just experience our caregivers in the moment. We absorbed and stored those experiences as mental and emotional impressions, internal objects. These impressions remain part of us and form templates for how we view others. So if you had a parent who was nurturing, you carry an inner sense of people can be comforting. If a parent was harsh, you carry an inner critic echoing that harshness. As Dr. Mitch Keel explains, we even internalize both sides of interactions, what it felt like to be the cared for child and what it felt like, in our young perception, to be the caregiver. That means we might later identify with our caregiver in some situations, e.g., find ourselves yelling just like dad did, despite swearing we never would, or revert to the childlike state in others, feeling small and scared when someone raises their voice, as if we're little again. How do people in your head affect today's relationships? In countless ways, big and small. One common effect is that we may project these internal images onto new people, especially in emotionally charged relationships. We don't see others with a blank slate, we see them filtered through our past. Sometimes people do not perceive others as they really are, but rather as they imagine them to be, as one therapist put it. For example, you might find that every time you have a boss or authority figure, you end up feeling rebellious and judged. Upon reflection, you realize you've been unconsciously reacting to them as if they were your overly critical father. Or maybe you constantly worry your partner is lying because a past partner betrayed you, so the image of that ex is coloring your view of the current love, even if they've done nothing untrustworthy. These internalized people can also influence how you treat yourself. If you carry a very critical internal parent, you might chronically judge yourself or dismiss compliments, essentially continuing to repeat the old dynamic internally, even when external circumstances have changed. Consider someone who had a parent who never acknowledged their achievements. Now, whenever they succeed at something, they can't feel proud. Instead, a voice in their head says, "It's not good enough," and they feel empty. That internalized parent is robbing them of joy in the present. On the flip side, if you were lucky to have a very supportive caregiver or mentor, you might still draw on that inner cheerleader in tough times, hearing their encouragement in your mind, which boosts your resilience. Therapists sometimes intentionally help clients build a positive internal figure, like imagining what a wise, caring parental voice would say to counteract a negative one. This underscores that we can reshape our internal cast of characters with time. Another important concept here is object constancy, the ability to understand that a relationship endures even when the person is not physically present. Young babies don't have this at first, hence peekaboo is thrilling. They think you literally disappear. As we grow, we normally develop object constancy. You know your friend still cares about you even if she's on vacation and not calling, for instance. However, if your early attachments were unstable, you might not have developed strong object constancy. This can lead to intense separation anxiety or fear of abandonment whenever someone you love is out of reach. It's as if, emotionally, out of sight means out of mind or heart. You might urgently text or need reassurance because on a gut level, you feel the relationship might vanish. This is clearly tied to anxious attachment, and it's something one can work on by building internal reassurance, reminding yourself of the person's love even when they're away, perhaps holding on to memories or tokens that represent the bond. Internalized relationships also affect boundaries and expectations. If you grew up with very blurred boundaries, say a parent who invaded your privacy or made you responsible for their feelings, you might carry that pattern into adulthood. Perhaps letting friends or partners cross lines too easily because you feel guilty enforcing boundaries. Your internal model might whisper, "If I set a boundary, I'm bad or I'll be abandoned," because that's what you learned at home. Conversely, if you had extremely rigid or distant caregivers, you might struggle to let others in because your internal comfort zone expects everyone to keep emotional distance. Recognizing these inherited patterns is key. Ask yourself, whose voice might be echoing in my reactions? And am I seeing this person in front of me for who they are or through an old lens? Sometimes even just labeling it, I'm reacting to my wife like she's my mom scolding me, but she's not my mom, can break the spell and help you respond more appropriately. Case example: the critical voice versus compliments. Ben is a talented professional in his 30s who, by all external accounts, is well liked. Yet, whenever a colleague or friend compliments his work, Ben automatically shrugs it off or insists, "Oh, it was nothing, I'm not that good." Inside, he feels a discomfort. A voice in his head instantly responds to praise with, "They're just being nice. You could have done better." This puzzled Ben until he reflected on his upbringing. His father, while caring, had very high standards and rarely expressed approval. He'd point out the one mistake in an A assignment or joke that "you're getting a big head" if Ben celebrated a win. Over time, Ben internalized this critical parent voice. Now, even though in reality his colleagues genuinely value his contributions, Ben's inner critic drowns it out, making him distrust positive feedback. Realizing this, Ben decided to practice a new response. When complimented, he forces himself to simply say, "Thank you, I appreciate that," and nothing self-deprecating after. He also started journaling any praise he received to have concrete evidence of others' appreciation. At first, it felt awkward. The inner critic didn't vanish overnight, but with practice, Ben noticed he could accept compliments with a bit less discomfort. He even shared with a close friend that he's working on this, and the friend now gently reminds him when he downplays himself. Little by little, Ben's internalized relationship with that critical voice is changing. He's learning to carry a more supportive voice in his head, one that says, "Hey, you did well. It's okay to feel proud." This scenario shows how carrying people in our head can affect our emotional life and relationships. Ben's inability to accept kindness from others was largely due to an internalized father constantly judging him. By identifying that and actively replacing the script through gratitude, journaling, and support from a friend, Ben is retraining his response. You can do this too with any internalized relationship that isn't serving you. Some tips to start: identify the dominant voices. When you're upset or doubting yourself, ask, "Whose voice does this sound like?" Or, "Which early relationship might this be echoing?" You might discover, for example, that your irritation at your partner for not doing chores sounds a lot like your mom's tone with your dad, a pattern you absorbed. Just this insight can help you decide if you want to respond differently than the script you were given. Cultivate a new internal voice, especially if you carry very negative voices, critical, shaming, fearful. It's important to deliberately introduce kinder, more balanced voices. This could be your own adult voice offering compassion to your inner child, e.g., "It's okay, you're doing your best, you deserve rest," or invoking the voice of someone who treats you well now. "What would my supportive friends say about this situation?" Some people find it helpful to give a name or persona to their inner critic, like "Critical Carl is nagging me again," and actively converse with it, setting boundaries on its influence. Reality check your projections. Whenever you suspect you might be projecting an old expectation onto a new person, check it out. For example, if you find yourself thinking, "My boyfriend will explode at me if I tell him I broke the vase," because a past figure did, consider, has he ever shown rage at a mistake? If not, tell yourself, "This is my past talking." You might even communicate to the person, "I have this tendency to assume people will be angry over small things because of my past. I know it's not fair to you, so I'm working on reminding myself you're more understanding." Often, the other person will appreciate the insight and help reinforce a different experience, e.g., the boyfriend reacts kindly, which further disconfirms your fear. The main point: we carry our past relationships within us, but we are not doomed to replay them forever. By becoming aware of these inner representations, we can start to update them. It's a bit like updating the software in your brain. You honor that those early figures will always be a part of you, but you don't let outdated programs run the show. In the next sections, we'll get very practical about changing the script, that is, actively rewiring unhelpful patterns and experimenting with new behaviors to build healthier, more secure relationships. This means taking all these insights about attachment, internal models, and internalized relationships and using them to take action in your daily life. After all, insight alone isn't enough. We learn by doing. The encouraging news, as we'll see, is that with consistent practice, even long-standing patterns can change, and new, positive experiences can overwrite the old. Changing the script. Tools for rewiring unhelpful patterns. By now, you may have identified some of your own attachment-driven habits and the beliefs behind them. So how do you actually change these patterns? It's one thing to know you have an anxious or avoidant tendency. It's another to behave differently when you're in the grip of old feelings. Change is possible. Many people have gone from insecure patterns to a more secure way of relating, often called earned secure attachment. But it takes intention and practice. Think of it like emotional fitness training. You'll be building new muscles, skills, and mindset shifts to replace the reflexes that no longer serve you. Here are concrete tools and exercises to help you rewrite your relationship script. You can treat these as experiments. Try them out in small ways and see what happens. Over time, these new ways of thinking and acting will start to feel more natural, and your relationships will likely reflect the positive changes. 1. Learn about your attachment style and own it. Knowledge is power. Simply understanding that your behavior has a name, anxious, avoidant, etc., can bring relief and direction. It helps you realize, I'm not crazy or alone. This is a known pattern and I can change it. So if you haven't already, do a bit of reading on your predominant style. There are quizzes and worksheets too. Reflect on how it's shown up across your life. Importantly, take ownership without self-blame. Yes, I tend to get anxious and need reassurance. That likely comes from how I grew up. Now it's my responsibility to manage it. Owning it sets the stage for change because you move from blaming others or just feeling doomed into a problem-solving mode. And 2, examine and challenge your core beliefs. Earlier, we discussed internal working models. Changing your attachment script requires updating those core beliefs. When you catch a negative belief, e.g., I'll be abandoned if I'm not perfect, or anyone I rely on will disappoint me, gently question it. A therapist might have you do a belief examination exercise. List evidence for and against that belief. Often, you'll find the belief is a generalized fear, not a fact. For instance, maybe one parent left, but many other people in your life haven't left you. So everyone abandons me isn't 100% true. You can then replace the old belief with a more nuanced one, like, sometimes people leave, but many people stay. I can survive when someone leaves, and I can trust those who have proven to be reliable. Another tactic is to fact-check in the moment. Next time you are afraid to trust your partner, literally look for evidence in the present situation that justifies that mistrust. If you find none, e.g., they have been supportive and faithful, remind yourself that the fear comes from the past. Over time, consistently abandoning outdated beliefs and choosing new ones. My needs aren't too much. A healthy person can love me for who I am will rewire your internal model. This is not an overnight process, but each instance of challenging a negative thought is like weakening an old pathway in your brain and strengthening a new one. 3. Act opposite to your attachment reflex, in small steps. This is a powerful exercise borrowed from therapy. Specifically, dialectical behavior therapy has a skill called opposite action. It means when your attachment reflex pulls you toward an unhealthy behavior, you intentionally do something contrary in a safe, small way to break the cycle. For anxious types, if your instinct is to call or text repeatedly when you feel insecure, pause and give it a little more time instead. If you usually seek validation for every decision, challenge yourself to make one choice this week on your own and then share it. Anxious attachers might also practice spending a bit of time alone doing something enjoyable to build confidence that they're okay without constant contact. For avoidant types, if your reflex is to shut down when upset, do the opposite and share something about what you're feeling, even if it's just, I feel overwhelmed and need a little space. If you never initiate affection or contact, experiment with sending a kind message or planning a get-together before the other person does. The goal is to nudge yourself out of the comfort zone of your pattern. Anxious folks build independence, avoidant folks build intimacy. It will feel uncomfortable at first, like using a weak muscle, but that's how muscles grow. Start small. Maybe the avoidant person commits to saying, I love you once a week to their partner unprompted, or the anxious person commits to waiting an extra hour before reacting to an unanswered text. As you consistently practice opposite actions, you'll find your tolerance for closeness or independence, whichever you need more of, increases. You also gather evidence that nothing catastrophic happens when you break your old rule. For example, the avoidant learns that sharing feelings didn't make their partner judge them. In fact, it brought them closer. The anxious learns that giving someone space didn't make them leave. They came back on their own. These new experiences are extremely potent in rewiring the brain towards secure attachment. 4. Build emotional awareness and self-regulation. A lot of attachment-driven behavior is reactive. We get anxious or angry or scared, and we act out, cling, yell, withdraw, without fully understanding our emotions. Improving your ability to manage your emotions will help you choose healthier responses. Start by increasing your emotional awareness. This means tuning into your body and feelings and expanding your emotional vocabulary. You can use tools like an emotion wheel or just pause and name what you're feeling. I feel jealous and sad right now. Journaling can be excellent for this. It slows you down enough to identify what's really going on inside. Next, practice self-regulation strategies to soothe yourself in moments of attachment distress. This could include deep breathing, mindfulness, grounding yourself in the present moment, or self-compassion exercises, talking to yourself kindly as you would to a friend. For example, if you're an anxiously attached person triggered by perceived rejection, you might feel your heart race and mind catastrophize. In that moment, instead of immediately acting, do a 5-minute breathing exercise or go for a brisk walk to calm your nervous system. If you're avoidant and feel the urge to stonewall someone during conflict, you might take a break and practice a calming routine. Listen to music, do progressive muscle relaxation, with a promise to return to the discussion at a set time. By managing your emotional spikes, you gain control over your reactions instead of being controlled by them. This makes it much easier to then communicate or behave in a thoughtful, rather than impulsive way. Remember, the goal is not to never feel anxious or overwhelmed. It's to learn you can handle those feelings without defaulting to old and unhelpful behaviors. 5. Communicate openly, especially about fears and needs. One hallmark of secure attachment is the ability to express your feelings and needs openly and to listen to your partner's friends' feelings with empathy. Improving communication can greatly rewrite relationship patterns. If you're not used to voicing your needs or fears, it's time to start practicing respectful, honest dialogue. This might involve using I statements and owning your feelings. I realize I get anxious when we go a few days without talking. It's something I'm working on, and it would help me if we could set aside a little time to catch up during the week. Compare that to the old pattern of perhaps lashing out. You never call me back. You must not care. Or saying nothing and stewing in resentment. By calmly stating your experience and making a request, you invite cooperation rather than conflict. Likewise, if you tend to hide your positive feelings out of fear of vulnerability, common in avoidant folks, challenge yourself to share something appreciative or affectionate. On the listening side, work on empathetic listening when others talk to you. Rather than reacting defensively or shutting down, truly try to understand their perspective. Use nonverbal cues, eye contact, nodding, and acknowledge their feelings. I hear you. It sounds like you felt hurt when I did that. Open communication is a two-way street, expressing yourself and receiving what the other says without reflexive defensiveness. This skill takes time, especially if conflict was handled poorly in your family, but it's learnable. There are many resources on healthy communication. For example, practicing fair fighting rules in conflicts or using timeout and return for heated arguments. A simple starting point. In your next difficult conversation, focus on staying calm, stating your feelings without blame, and validating the other person's feelings even if you disagree. Emotional transparency, done respectfully, builds security on both sides. You prove to each other that the relationship is sturdy enough to handle real talk. 6. Set and respect healthy boundaries. Boundaries are the guidelines that protect your well-being and define what behavior is acceptable in a relationship. For many with insecure attachment, boundaries can be a challenge. Anxious people often have weak boundaries, overgiving, letting others infringe to avoid rejection, and avoidant people can have rigid boundaries that shut people out. Learning healthy boundaries is key to more secure relationships. Remember, boundaries aren't about punishment or control, they're about clarity and self respect. One relationship coach aptly said, "Boundaries are the guardrails of self respect in relationships, anchored in our values and essential for emotional safety." By setting a boundary, you're saying, "This is what I need to feel respected and safe. If that boundary is crossed, this is what I will do to protect myself." For example, if you have an anxious style, you might set a boundary with yourself to not abandon your personal routines or friendships just because you're in a new romance. You'll keep one night a week for me time. Or you might set a boundary with a partner. "I'm okay with texting daily, but I'm not comfortable with you tracking my location. I need trust and a bit of independence." On the other side, if you're avoidant, a boundary might be expressing the need for alone time before you reach a breaking point. "After work, I need an hour to decompress. It's not about you, it helps me show up better afterwards." Communicating that prevents your partner from feeling shut out without explanation. When setting boundaries, it helps to be both firm and kind. A great boundary setting script is to use "that doesn't work for me" as a neutral, firm statement. For instance, "I know you'd like to spend all weekend together, but that doesn't work for me. I need to catch up on some personal tasks Sunday morning. Let's plan something for Saturday." Notice this isn't an apology or a critique, it's a clear statement of your limit. If the person respects it, great. If not, a boundary also implies what action you'll take. For example, if you continue to raise your voice at me, their behavior, "I will need to pause this discussion and resume when we're calm," your action, because I need respectful communication. This separates what you will do from trying to control them. For anxious attachers especially, setting boundaries can be scary. You fear it'll push people away. But ironically, healthy boundaries increase connection and safety in the long run. They teach others how to treat you and prevent burnout and resentment on your part. Start with small boundaries in low-stakes situations to build confidence. Maybe practice saying no to a minor request or expressing a preference. "I actually don't like when jokes go that direction. Can we not?" Each time you uphold a boundary and the sky doesn't fall, you reinforce the belief that I can assert my needs and still be loved. If someone consistently disrespects reasonable boundaries, that's information too. Healthy relationships require mutual respect, and you might need to step back from people who refuse to honor your limits. 7. Seek out secure role models and supportive relationships. It's much easier to change your patterns if you have examples of healthier dynamics to learn from. If all your close relationships are with people who trigger your insecurity or reinforce it, progress will be tough. So cultivate connections with secure individuals whenever possible. This could mean spending more time with that friend who has great boundaries and communicates directly. Observe how they handle situations. Maybe even ask them for perspective on your struggles. If you're dating and tend to pick partners who exacerbate your anxieties, e.g., the classic anxious person chasing an avoidant partner, consider seeking a more secure partner, even if they might initially seem boring compared to the drama you're used to. A securely attached partner can essentially model consistency, trust, and healthy intimacy, which over time helps you become more secure by experience. In a work setting, if you have the choice, work with colleagues or mentors who are supportive and clear rather than chaotic or overly critical. It will do wonders for your confidence and attachment rewiring in that domain. If you don't currently have such people in your life, expand your circle in small ways. Join groups or communities that encourage healthy relating, for example, a supportive class, a hobby club, a volunteer group. Sometimes even reading books or listening to podcasts by secure or insightful individuals can serve as a proxy for secure role models. The idea is to immerse yourself in examples of how trust, respect, and interdependence look in practice. Our brains learn a lot by observation and imitation, thanks to mirror neurons. So watching a friend calmly talk through a disagreement with their partner and seeing they don't break up but actually come out closer teaches your anxious brain that conflict doesn't equal abandonment. Or seeing a colleague admit a mistake without the world ending might teach your avoidant side that vulnerability isn't fatal. Surrounding yourself with healthier dynamics raises the bar for what you consider normal and acceptable. Number 8, minimize excess stress and practice self-care. It's harder to work on relationship patterns when you're extremely stressed or depleted. In fact, stress can exaggerate insecure attachment behaviors even in people who are usually secure. Think about it. When you're exhausted, sleep deprived, or anxious from other life events, your capacity for patience and reflection shrinks, and you're more likely to slip into old habits. So part of changing your attachment script is keeping your overall stress in check and taking care of your well-being. Prioritize the basics: sufficient sleep, proper nutrition, exercise, and downtime. These keep your nervous system more regulated so you're not on a hair trigger. If you're in a romantic relationship, it's wise to address major external stressors together proactively. For example, financial strain or health issues, so they don't constantly fuel attachment insecurities, like fighting about money then spiraling into "do you still love me?" Engage in calming activities together too, not just individually. Taking a walk, practicing a short meditation, or even as simple as a daily check-in chat can reduce tension and strengthen your bond. Self-care also means doing things that reinforce you are worthy of care. Insecure attachment often comes with neglecting oneself, especially in anxious folks who caretake others at their own expense, or in those with trauma who feel they don't deserve good things. Turn that around by intentionally treating yourself kindly. This could be journaling affirmations, taking a relaxing bath, pursuing a hobby you love, or setting a boundary to give yourself rest. As you build self-care habits, you cultivate a sense of self-trust. You prove to yourself, "I will be there for me," which amazingly reduces the desperation you might feel for others to fill every need. Self-trust is a core of secure attachment. It's the internal secure base that complements having secure relationships with others. 9. Gradual exposure to fears. If there's something your attachment style fears, a very effective way to overcome it is through gradual exposure, intentionally and repeatedly doing a milder version of the feared thing until it's not so scary. For an anxious attachment, a big fear might be being alone or not getting immediate reassurance. So you practice being alone in enjoyable ways, e.g., take yourself out to a movie or dinner, or spend an evening doing something just for you without contact. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, but you'll likely discover you can have a pretty good time solo and the world doesn't collapse. Similarly, you might try waiting a bit longer for replies, as we discussed, to teach your nervous system that silence isn't the end of the relationship. For avoidant attachment, a common fear is relying on someone or letting someone really see me. The exposure could be to incrementally increase vulnerability. Maybe start by sharing a small worry or something that's bothering you. If deep feelings are too hard, start with lighter personal disclosures. Or ask for a little help with something you'd normally do alone. Experience the discomfort and see that the person likely responds positively, which chips away at your fear that closeness equals being controlled or hurt. Over time, you can take bigger steps, like discussing a past pain or depending on a partner for support during a tough time. The principle is to face the attachment fear in digestible doses so your tolerance builds. If something feels too overwhelming, scale it back. The idea is to stretch, not snap. Each successful exposure, even if it's a bit messy, reinforces new learning. E.g., I spent the weekend without my girlfriend and we were fine. I even enjoyed my time and she was happy to see me later. Or I told my brother I was feeling down and he was really kind. Leaning on him didn't lead to shame. These experiences accumulate to rewrite your script from "I can't" or "bad things will happen if" to "actually, I handled that, and maybe I can handle a bit more next time." Let's bring these tools to life with a couple more short real-world scenarios. Case example: reconnecting instead of withdrawing. Kara has an avoidant-leaning attachment style. Whenever she feels herself growing very close to her boyfriend, say after an intimate weekend, she experiences a wave of discomfort and suddenly craves space. In the past, Kara would deal with this by ghosting her boyfriend for a day or two, claiming she was just busy, while internally she felt relief being alone. But her boyfriend would feel hurt and confused by these mixed signals. After recognizing this pattern, Kara decided to try a new script. The next time she felt that urge to withdraw after intimacy, she instead communicated, "I had an amazing weekend with you. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed just because I'm not used to so much closeness, but I want you to know I care about you. I think I need a quiet day to myself tomorrow to recharge. Can we plan to talk the day after?" Her boyfriend appreciated the honesty and agreed. Kara took her alone day, self-care and reflection, but made sure to text him that evening with a friendly check-in, a small step to stay connected. To her surprise, taking planned space, rather than disappearing, didn't ruin the relationship. In fact, it built more trust. Her boyfriend didn't feel rejected because she had explained her feelings. Over time, as Kara keeps practicing this balance of alone time with communication, she notices she feels less suffocated, and her boyfriend grows more confident in her caring. Because even when she needs space, she still reassures him she's there. Kara is essentially training herself that it's safe to be close. She can take space in a healthy way without destroying the intimacy. Case example: from people-pleasing to balanced giving. Dana identifies with an anxious, people-pleasing pattern. She's the friend who says yes to every favor, the coworker who stays late to help others with their tasks, and the family member who never asks for anything but is always there to fix a crisis. Deep down, Dana's self-worth has been tied to being useful to others, a belief instilled in childhood when she only got praise for being helpful. Now she's exhausted and notices some friends even take advantage of her. Working on her attachment script, Dana focuses on boundaries and self-worth. She practices saying no or expressing her own needs in low-risk situations. For example, when a casual acquaintance asks for a big favor that she really doesn't have time for, she forces herself to respond, "I'm sorry, I can't commit to that right now." She feels anxious hitting send, but also a bit empowered. To her surprise, the acquaintance simply says, "No worries." In another instance, a close friend keeps venting to Dana for hours, which drains her. Dana cares, but she starts setting a gentle limit. "I want to support you, but I'm pretty spent right now. Can we catch up tomorrow instead?" The friend adapts. Each time Dana stands up for her own needs, she realizes true friends don't leave. They adjust and respect her more. She also carves out one night a week where she does something for herself only. No saving anyone that day. Over a few months, Dana feels less resentful and more energized. Her relationships improve because she's giving from a place of choice, not fear. And interestingly, she notices people start treating her with more respect, likely because her self-respect is coming through. This positive feedback further reinforces her more secure behavior, creating a virtuous cycle. These examples highlight tools in action: honest communication, setting boundaries, acting opposite to old impulses, and experiencing the rewards. Remember that relapse into old habits is normal during the change process. Don't beat yourself up if under stress you slip into an anxious spiral or shut someone out. The key is to notice it, have compassion for yourself. Old habits are hard to break, and then get back on track. Each time you interrupt the old script and try a new response, you are rewiring neural pathways associated with attachment. Psychologists have found that even as adults, our brains can change through new experiences, a concept called neuroplasticity. In fact, one study referenced in a Help Guide article noted that people who deliberately aimed to become less anxious or avoidant in their attachment did make progress toward more secure patterns over time. Change might be gradual, but it does happen. So to sum up the toolkit for change: awareness of patterns, challenging inner beliefs, opposite actions, emotion regulation, open communication, healthy boundaries, support network, stress management, and gradual exposure. That might sound like a lot, but you don't have to tackle everything at once. Even focusing on one or two of these areas can start a chain reaction of positive change. The next section will suggest some daily practices and exercises to help integrate these tools into your life, and how to make them a routine so they actually stick. Think of it like developing new habits. Small daily efforts can lead to big transformations in the long run. Daily practices for secure connection, exercises, journaling, and real life challenges. Changing your relationship patterns is not a one time epiphany, it's something you reinforce through consistent practice. By incorporating some daily or weekly exercises, you'll keep up the momentum and gradually shift your attachment orientation towards security. This section provides practical, everyday strategies, self reflection prompts, communication scripts, and little challenges to build your secure relationship muscles. You can cherry pick the ones that resonate most with you and your situation. Remember to approach these practices with a sense of curiosity and self compassion. It's about experimentation, not perfection. Morning check in. Set an intention for relationships. Each morning, take just 2-3 minutes to check in with yourself. Ask, how do I want to approach my relationships today? Set a simple intention that aligns with the new patterns you want to encourage. For example, today, if I feel insecure, I will pause and breathe before reacting. Or I will practice appreciating my partner out loud. Or even, I will uphold my boundary of going to the gym after work, even if someone asks for my time. By consciously bringing your goals to mind, you prime yourself to actually do them. You might even write the intention on a sticky note or in a phone reminder. This keeps your attachment work active in your consciousness, rather than something you forget until a crisis hits. Journaling for attachment healing. Journaling is a powerful tool for understanding and reshaping your attachment patterns. It helps slow down racing thoughts and access deeper insights. Here are some journaling prompts tailored to attachment and self-awareness. You can choose one every few days. Self-awareness. What early experiences shape the way I show up in relationships today? Write about specific childhood memories or past relationships that you think contributed to, say, your fear of conflict or your tendency to cling. Understanding the origin can help you separate past from present. Identifying fears. When I feel anxious in a relationship, what am I afraid will happen? Name the catastrophe your mind is predicting, e.g., if I don't hear from them, they'll leave me. Seeing it on paper lets you question its likelihood and come up with a coping plan. Needs and people-pleasing. In what ways do I overfunction or people-please in my relationships? What needs of mine get ignored when I prioritize others? This prompt helps those who give too much identify what they sacrifice. You might realize, I always agree to my friend's schedule and neglect my own rest. That awareness is the first step to change. Also answer, what am I afraid will happen if I set boundaries or say no? Often it's fear of rejection. Writing it out lets you challenge that fear. Boundaries and balance. What relationships in my life feel mutual and supportive, and which feel one-sided? What patterns do I notice in the one-sided ones? This can shine a light on where you may need to set boundaries or speak up. It also reminds you some relationships are healthier, which you can learn from. Inner beliefs. If I believed I was already enough, just as I am, how would I act differently in relationships? This is a powerful prompt to uncover where low self-worth might be driving you to overcompensate. For instance, you might write, if I felt I was enough, I wouldn't keep testing my partner or worrying they'll find someone better. I'd relax and enjoy our time. That shows what mindset shift is needed. Self-compassion. What would I say to my younger self in moments of fear or loneliness? Since attachment issues often stem from childhood wounds, it can be healing to write a letter from your adult self to your inner child. Offer reassurance and understanding for what they went through. This exercise builds self-compassion, treating yourself with the kindness you may not have received back then. Envisioning secure you. What does a healthy, secure relationship look like to me? How do I want to show up in my relationships, ideally? Describe in detail how you'd communicate, handle conflict, show love, and maintain boundaries if you were securely attached. This creates a sort of mental blueprint to aim for. Include how you imagine feeling internally, e.g., I'd feel calm, not walking on eggshells, confident that I'm loved even if we disagree. Do not worry about doing all these prompts. Even doing one a week can bring new insights. Journaling is also an excellent place to process events as they happen. If you had a fight or a trigger, write the narrative and then reflect with an attachment lens. What did I feel, think? What might have been an old pattern? What could I try differently next time? Over time, your journal becomes a map of your growth. You can look back and see progress, patterns changing, or new challenges emerging to focus on. Mindset reminders and affirmations. Our self talk plays a huge role in attachment. If you can shift your inner dialogue to be more secure, your emotions and behaviors will follow. Consider creating a short list of affirmations or reminders that counteract your particular insecure beliefs. Here are some examples. For anxious attachment, I am worthy of love as I am. I do not have to earn love through pleasing everyone. Not hearing back right away doesn't mean I'm being abandoned. My relationships are stronger than a short silence. I can handle feelings of uncertainty. I've survived them before and things usually turn out okay. For avoidant attachment, it's okay to ask for help. It doesn't make me weak. People can care about me even when they see my vulnerabilities. I am not in this alone. Letting someone in can actually make things easier, not harder. For low self-worth, common to both anxious and disorganized, I deserve respect and healthy love. If someone doesn't meet me halfway, it's a reflection on them, not my worth. Mistakes and disagreements don't make me unlovable or mean the relationship will end. I am enough, and I'm growing more secure each day. Write down a few lines that resonate for you. Even better if you phrase them in your own words. Then find a way to see them regularly. Maybe put them on your phone as a daily notification. Stick post-it notes on your mirror or fridge, or incorporate them into a morning or bedtime routine. The idea isn't to use magical thinking or deny challenges, but to rewire your default thinking patterns. When your brain is so used to saying, I'm going to be abandoned, or I can't trust anyone, it needs repeated new messages to carve a different groove. At first, affirmations might feel false or silly, especially if your internal critic is strong, but treat them as you would kind words to a friend. You might not 100% believe them yet, but you say them because you want your friend to believe and feel better. Over time, these words will sink in and start to compete with the negative thoughts, especially if you pair them with real-life experiences of success, however small. For instance, after successfully setting a boundary, you might reinforce it by telling yourself, "See, I stood up for myself and I'm still loved. This is what secure behavior looks like and I can do it." That pairing of action plus positive self-talk is very effective. Real-life challenges, homework for secure attachment. To really apply what you're learning, give yourself a small challenge each week that targets a specific growth area. Here are some ideas. Communication challenge. The next time something bothers you in a relationship, speak up about it within 24 to 48 hours rather than stuffing it down or hinting. Use the formula of stating feelings and a request. For example, "Hey, I felt a bit hurt when our plans got canceled last minute. Could we communicate a bit earlier next time if something comes up?" It would mean a lot. Notice the outcome. Was it better than silently stewing? Likely yes, as you both end up on the same page. Independence challenge for the anxious leaning. Do one activity you'd normally do with a friend or partner by yourself. This could be going to a cafe, attending an event, or even tackling a household task solo that you usually ask someone to help with for company. The goal is to build comfort in your own presence. Write down afterwards how it went. You might discover it's actually liberating or peaceful. Vulnerability challenge for the avoidant leaning. Intentionally share something slightly deeper about yourself with someone you trust. It could be telling a friend about a fear you have, or letting your partner in on a cherished dream or a painful memory. Gauge their response. Chances are, they'll appreciate your openness and you'll feel closer. This challenges the belief, I must always be strong, independent, and shows that intimacy can be safe and rewarding. Boundary challenge. Identify one boundary you know you need or one instance of overextending yourself coming up. Plan how you will assert that boundary. It could be telling your family you won't be coming home for every holiday, or informing a colleague you can't take on an extra project, or even a micro boundary, like telling a friend who's texting at 2 a.m. that you'll reply in the morning because you need sleep. Practice the wording in advance if needed, e.g., "I have a rule of not answering work messages on Sunday. I hope you understand," or "I need to recharge tonight. Let's catch up later this week." Then do it. and afterward, reflect on the outcome. Celebrate that you respected yourself, regardless of how the other person reacted. But you'll find most people adjust without drama, especially if you deliver the message calmly. Repair challenge. If there is someone you trust and feel safe with, could be a partner, close friend, or family member, and you've had patterns of conflict, plan to talk about the pattern itself. For example, I notice I often pull away when we argue, and I don't want to do that. Can we come up with a better way to handle disagreements? Maybe if I ask for a 15-minute break, I promise to come back and resume talking. Or if you tend to apologize excessively, anxious trait, discuss it. I realized I say sorry even when I don't need to. If you catch me doing that, you can playfully call me out. I'm trying to break that habit. Engaging someone in your growth not only helps keep you accountable, it also transforms potential points of tension into opportunities for rupture and repair. Secure relationships aren't without conflict. They just handle it in a constructive way, which often deepens trust. So actively working on a repair strategy with someone can increase security on both sides. Gratitude and positivity challenge. Secure attachment isn't just about fixing problems. It's also about enhancing the positive and feeling safe to express love and joy. Challenge yourself to express appreciation or affection once a day to someone you care about. It might be a simple text, thinking of you and grateful to have you in my life. Or complimenting your partner's quality. I really admire how patient you are with the kids. For someone avoidant, this might feel vulnerable, but it helps you practice positive sharing. For someone anxious, it shifts focus from your worries to the good in the relationship and reminds both you and the other person that there's a strong bond. Sharing positive feelings can actually feel surprisingly hard if you're not used to it, but it's a key part of secure bonding. Secure folks freely give and receive affection and praise. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes, and it creates an upward spiral of warmth. Finally, remember to celebrate small wins. Changing attachment patterns can be slow, and you might be tempted to only focus on what's not perfect yet. Make a habit of acknowledging progress. Maybe keep a secure wins journal where you jot a line whenever you handle something in a healthier way than you would have in the past. Stood my ground when friend teased me, didn't just laugh it off, told them it bothered me, and they apologized. Win. Or felt jealous, but instead of accusation, I told my partner calmly, and it turned into a reassuring conversation. That's growth. Seeing these notes will motivate you on hard days and reinforce your new identity as someone who is actively building secure attachment. When to seek support, knowing when you need more than self-work. While self-help practices can be incredibly effective, there are times when you might need additional support to unravel deep-seated patterns. How do you know when it's time to get help from a therapist, counselor, or support group? Here are some signs. Your patterns feel overwhelming or unchangeable. If you've been trying to change on your own and keep finding yourself in the exact same destructive situations, for instance, repeatedly ending up in toxic relationships or experiencing panic attacks at the slightest conflict, consider seeking professional guidance. Some attachment wounds, especially those rooted in early trauma or severe neglect, run very deep. A trained therapist can provide a safe space and tailored interventions like trauma-focused therapy, EMDR, or schema therapy, to work through those wounds in a way self-help sometimes can't fully reach. Childhood trauma in particular can interrupt healthy attachment so much that you might essentially be fighting an uphill battle alone. Unresolved trauma often leaves you with intense feelings of fear and helplessness that continue into adulthood. If you resonate with that, therapy is not only advisable, it can be transformative. The good news is that even trauma from many years ago can be healed with the right approach, allowing you to finally feel secure. Symptoms of deeper mental health issues. Sometimes what looks like just an attachment issue is intertwined with conditions like anxiety disorders, depression, or personality disorders. For example, disorganized attachment from serious trauma might come along with symptoms of PTSD or borderline personality disorder, BPD. If you experience things like dissociation, feeling disconnected from reality, uncontrollable mood swings, self-harm urges, or suicidal thoughts, Those are beyond the scope of self-coaching. Please reach out to a mental health professional. Therapy, and sometimes medication, can stabilize these symptoms, which will then give you a steadier foundation to work on the relational patterns. There's zero shame in this. In fact, it's an act of courage and self-care to recognize you need help. Think of it this way: you wouldn't try to perform surgery on yourself. Similarly, for our emotional wounds, expert help can sometimes be the only way to truly heal. Your relationships are very volatile or harmful. If you find yourself in relationships that involve abuse, emotional, physical, or sexual, constant turmoil, or partners with untreated severe issues like active addiction or violence, professional support is crucial. Your attachment system could be keeping you stuck in a dangerous loop. Trauma bonding, in the case of abusive cycles. A therapist can help you break free safely and rebuild your sense of self. Even if it's not outright abuse, but you notice you and your partner just cannot break the cycle of huge fights or dramatic breakups and reunions, couples therapy or individual therapy could help interrupt that pattern. Sometimes an external perspective sheds light on dynamics you're both too close to see. Therapists trained in attachment or emotionally focused therapy can guide couples to recognize the dance they're in, often pursuer-distancer dynamic, and find new steps. There's no weakness in needing a referee or coach for your relationship. It can be the difference between repeating the same fight for 10 years versus actually moving into a healthier place or deciding what's truly best. You've made progress but hit a plateau. Maybe you've improved somewhat on your own. You're more aware now, maybe less reactive, but certain triggers still hijack you, or you can't quite get to secure functioning. At this point, a therapist can help fine-tune your growth. Think of it like hiring a personal trainer after you've lost some initial weight on your own, but want to reach a specific fitness goal. A good therapist will build on the work you've done and possibly introduce techniques or perspectives you hadn't considered. For example, perhaps you've done well at managing everyday anxieties, but you have never processed that big childhood event, like a parent's divorce or early loss, that continues to echo. Therapy can provide a safe container to finally process and lay that trauma to rest. You crave a corrective relationship experience. One of the powerful things about therapy, especially with a therapist who understands attachment, is that it provides a secure relationship to practice in. A therapist can serve as a kind of surrogate secure base, someone who is consistently there, accepting, and attuned to you. Many people with insecure attachment have never actually felt what it's like to be safely connected without fear or games. The therapy relationship itself can be healing. You learn to trust, communicate your needs, and perhaps even reparent the wounded parts of you through the therapist's guidance. Over time, this can shift your internal working model to finally believe, I am worthy and others can be there for me, because you directly experience it with the therapist. Of course, therapy isn't the only place for corrective experiences. A healthy romantic relationship or close friendship can also be healing, but those can be hard to form until you've done some healing yourself. So therapy can catalyze the process, making it easier to then have secure relationships outside therapy too. When seeking support, look for professionals who have knowledge of attachment theory, trauma, or relationships, such as a licensed counselor, clinical psychologist, marriage and family therapist, or social worker with these specialties. There are also support groups, in person or online, for individuals with attachment issues or who grew up in dysfunctional families, like CODA, Codependence Anonymous, or various trauma survivor groups. Sharing with peers who get it can reduce your shame and isolation. Just be cautious to choose groups that are focused on healing and not just venting. You want an environment that models healthy relating. Another option is relationship coaching or workshops. These can be great for skills building, like practicing communication or boundary setting in a structured environment. Some people find workshops on things like nonviolent communication or attachment style seminars eye-opening. The caveat: ensure any coach or workshop leader is reputable. Since coaching is less regulated than therapy, do your research on their credentials and approach. It's worth noting that sometimes the very act of seeking therapy is a breakthrough in your attachment journey. If you have an avoidant streak, admitting I need help and relying on a therapist is a huge step towards healthy dependence. Remember, healthy dependence is secure. We all need others, just not in a way that forfeits ourselves. If you have a fearful streak, trusting a therapist with your feelings can be the first time you allow yourself to be vulnerable without running. These are profound steps that will ripple into other relationships. In summary, don't hesitate to seek extra support when needed. Just like an athlete gets a coach or a student gets a tutor for tough subjects, you can get a relationship coach or therapist to help rewrite your attachment story. As one attachment specialist pointed out, individuals with very challenging attachment histories, like fearful, avoidant, disorganized styles, often require professional support to truly heal, and that's perfectly okay. There's strength in recognizing you can't do it all alone. In fact, learning to lean on appropriate help is in itself moving towards secure attachment, which is all about healthy interdependence. Conclusion: building relationships from a place of trust and choice, not fear. Imagine waking up in the morning and instead of immediately worrying about your relationships, did I upset her? Is he going to text? What if I get hurt? You feel a basic sense of calm and self-assurance. You know whatever happens, you will be okay. You trust yourself to handle challenges, and you trust that those closest to you care about you. This is what it feels like to operate from a secure place, to relate from trust and choice rather than fear. Moving towards secure attachment doesn't mean you become a perfect person or have flawless relationships. Arguments will still happen. You might still feel a twinge of jealousy or the urge to pull back now and then. The difference is that those feelings no longer control you. They're simply signals you can respond to thoughtfully. You're no longer trapped in the old script of, say, chasing love desperately or erecting walls at the first sign of closeness. Instead, you can choose how to respond. You might choose to communicate honestly rather than sulk, or to give someone space rather than hound them, or to reach out for support rather than suffer in silence. With a more secure mindset, relationships become a source of enrichment, not constant anxiety. You'll likely find you can enjoy closeness without as much fear and enjoy independence without guilt. Friendships deepen because you're more authentic and present. Romantic relationships become more stable and nurturing, as you and your partner can turn to each other for support instead of triggering each other's defenses. Even at work, you may notice changes. Perhaps you collaborate better, handle feedback without feeling personally attacked, or step up as a leader because you're not second-guessing your worth. Crucially, building security in yourself radiates outward. As you develop a secure base inside, you also become a more secure base for others. Your children, if you have any, benefit immensely from a parent who is emotionally attuned and stable. Your friends feel safe confiding in you because they sense you won't freak out or judge. You might even positively influence a partner who has their own insecurities by modeling calm and trust. There's evidence that attachment styles can rub off on each other in adult relationships. For instance, a securely attached spouse can over time help an anxious spouse become less anxious through consistent love. By doing this work, you're not only healing yourself, but also contributing to healthier relationship dynamics around you. As you continue practicing the exercises and tools we discussed, and perhaps seeking additional support if needed, remember to be patient and kind to yourself. Changing lifelong patterns is a profound journey. There may be setbacks, and that's okay. Each step, even backward ones, can teach you something. What matters is the overall trend toward greater awareness and healthier choices. Give yourself credit for every bit of progress, no matter how small. Maybe a few months ago, you'd have burst into tears during an argument, and now you managed to stay and talk. That's huge. Or once you'd never have imagined saying no to your siblings' demands, and now you have once or twice. Celebrate that. Over time, these small victories accumulate and the new script solidifies. In closing, envision the kind of relationships you ultimately want, ones based on mutual respect, honest communication, and genuine affection. Keep that vision in your mind's eye. It is achievable. Attachment patterns are powerful, yes, but they are patterns, and patterns can change with new experiences and choices. You are actively giving yourself those new experiences day by day. You're teaching your nervous system that it's safe to love and be loved in a balanced way. Life will continue to throw stressors and even heartbreaks at times. That's out of our control. But what is in your control is how you've prepared your heart and mind to handle them. By building a secure foundation within, you ensure that when storms come, you and your relationships can withstand them rather than be swept away. You'll be able to say, "We can face this challenge. I can face this because our connection is built on trust and I trust myself." Ultimately, shifting from fear to trust in relationships allows you to experience real intimacy and freedom. You're no longer chained by old anxieties or reflexes. You can approach others with openness, knowing you have the strength to cope with whatever happens. This creates space for love to grow, love that is chosen freely, not entangled in desperation or defense. As you continue on this journey, keep in mind the core message. You are worthy of love and capable of loving. This has been true all along. Attachment work is about clearing the debris that has obscured this truth. With knowledge, practice, and support, you're clearing that path. Step by step, you are learning to build relationships and a life that feels safe, fulfilling, and authentically yours. And every effort you make is an act of love toward yourself, arguably the most important relationship of all. Here's to moving forward with a more secure sense of self, deeper connections, and the growing confidence that you can handle relationships by choice, not fear. Anata wa daijoubu. In Japanese, you will be okay. Indeed, you will, and more than okay, you'll thrive.